instinct, kid, I'm orchid. I'm coming with more shit than your average dork, kid. If this is Mario Kart, dude, I'm Bowser. I'm coming highway, plus my words much louder.
What's up, my Wizards Dev? From SBMTG, down there on the YouTube.com, coming to you smack in the middle of Pro Tour Eldritch Moon weekend. Big weekend, a lot of people excited to see how this weekend shakes out. You know, what are the best decks in the format? Do we have a good spread of awesome decks in Standard, or is it all just going to be bad company? We got to solve that problem in the current Standard. But I'm gonna cover the top 8 of Pro Tour Eldritch Moon coming up very early next week, Monday, Tuesday. Look for that. But all those decks are going to be super expensive, and all the decks I've been covering lately are at least relatively expensive. So I figured, let's go the opposite direction this weekend, and let's look at an awesome budget deck for players that don't have hundreds of dollars to play this game. Today we're going to talk about green-red aggro, and I'm actually going to give you sort of two different versions of this deck. I'm going to give you a base model as we move through, and I'll actually give you more budget options than what we're already even playing. The base model of the deck is going to cost you about $40 to build on TCG Player, but if you implement all the budget options I'm going to give you, it could cost you as low as $6. So let's take a look. We got 30 creatures. This is an aggro deck, after all. And they're all really low on the curve. We're sort of mimicking white aggro strategy of just playing a ton of 1-drops and going super duper under everything in the format right now. Or at least that's the theory, and we have a lot of creatures that can help us do that. So let's just start with the 1-drops, and I'll give them to you all at the same time here. We're going to play 3 copies of Zurgo, gotta do that, 4 copies of Kessig Prowler, 4 copies of Village Messenger, and 4 copies of Falcon Wrath Gorger here. Now Zurgo, start with him, he's just like the best 1-drop in these colors, so we're going to play him, no questions asked, gotta do it. Dash is also good, lots of sorcery speed removal right now, so gotta play Zurgo. Kessig Prowler is actually a pretty impressive 1-drop. Not only is he a 2-power 1-drop, but he can become literally the biggest creature in the deck a little bit later on in the game. That's not bad, and he has like reverse menace. Village Messenger, on the other hand, also can transform, but he has regular menace, so he transforms. Village Messenger is actually a little better than he looks in every deck I've ever played him in. He's often a 2-power 1-drop on turn 2, especially against decks that have no action on turn 1, and we get to go first. Village Messenger can be pretty good in a lot of those situations. And then Falcon Wrath Gorger is just, you know, again, one of the better 1-drops we can play in these colors. And he actually does synergize with something else we're playing, but it's a 2-power 1-drop, we got to do it. But if you don't have the $1 that it costs to get Falcon Wrath Gorgers, you can just probably play Goblin Glory Chaser in this spot, and it won't be quite as good, but it'll still be a solid creature. Into the 2-drop creatures here, and I'll tell you about 2 of them at the same time because they're both integral to what the deck is sort of trying to pull off, and they're both at least somewhat similar in what they do. So let's take a look at these guys. 3 copies of Fury Blade Vampire and 4 copies of the very important Noose Constrictor. Noose Constrictor can just do a bunch of damage very quickly, and we are playing some just, you know, 1-mana madness things. And the same thing goes with Fury Blade Vampire. I was really impressed with the performance of this thing when I built Black Red Vampires a little while back. Just, you know, this is basically a budget 2-mana 4-power guy. And 2-mana 4-power guys are very powerful. So Falcon Wrath Gorger, very good, and also obviously synergizes with the madness stuff we're playing. But Noose Constrictor really is the actual attraction here. Noose Constrictor is just very good when left unblocked and can do a bunch of damage very quickly. So gotta play Noose Constrictor, especially for what we're trying to do here. Our other 2-drop that we're going to play a playset of here is Abbot of Carol Keep. And if you don't have the about $1.50 right now that it takes to play Abbot, it's never been cheaper to play Abbot. But if you don't have that kind of money, I mean, I know that comes out to a good little bit after you got to buy a playset, and the card's going to rotate soon. You could just play Stromkirk Occultist, which doesn't rotate anytime soon, and accomplishes the same basic goal here, and has a little bit more power. And it's another madness thing. I mean, I could see playing Occultist. It's only about 35 cents, so it'll save you a lot of money. But Abbot of Carol Keep, we can always play it on turn 2. It's really good later on in the game. And its main purpose is to serve as a sort of counterbalance to Fury Blade Vampire and Noose Constrictor, these things that make us want to discard cards. This is a way of getting sort of card advantage, you know, pseudo card advantage in a way. So I think it's very important to play Abbot or Occultist. I think Abbot's the better choice here, at least until it rotates. But either way you want to go, very important to have something that does this in the deck. And last creature already, a 4 of Reckless Bushwhacker. This is maybe the most important creature in the deck, and one of the reasons that we're playing all the 1-drops in the world. We're playing something like 15 1-drops in this deck, and this is a reason why. We want to be able to, on turn 3, play a 1-drop and a Bushwhacker and swing for a lot. You know, you play turn 1 1-drop, turn 2 2-drop, turn 3 one drop and a bushwhacker, and suddenly you're swinging for a lot of damage up under Languish. They haven't been able to get to a Languish or a Coco yet. You know, you don't have to worry about them playing Coco and blocking your guys and returning other dudes, blowing you out. Also, if you went first, this can go up under Kozilek's return, Radiant Flames, you know, on their next turn. Just really, Reckless Bushwhacker is fantastic. And we've got a bunch of 1-mana plays in the deck. Something else we can do, by the way, is like turn 2 Noose Constrictor, turn 3, give him +1 by discarding a Fiery Temper, playing it for 1 mana, and then playing Bushwhacker for 2. That's also a pretty good play. Don't forget that he himself has haste too, so, I mean, just really fantastic creature for this deck this guy is, and is one of the entire reasons that we can make this strategy work at all. Into the spells here, which we're playing 12 of, which leaves us room for 18 lands, but most of our things are 1 and 2 drops. Really, the only 3 drop is Reckless Bushwhacker, and I guess Fiery Temper, but we're going to be playing Bushwhacker for 2, Fiery Temper for 1 most of the time. So let's get into the spells here. The most important spell to play by a lot, and it's hard to replace it, but we can, is 4 copies of Atarka's Command, which has held its price somewhat admirably here. I found them for $4.75 on TCG Player, and you can find like damaged and moderately played copies for even way cheaper than that. It's just a fantastic freaking card, and probably the single best non-creature release card in the entire deck, and probably really the best card, period. Just, you know, if you don't have the money for this, which this is $20 for a playset, I guess you could play like Incendiary Flow is probably my next choice here. Because Incendiary Flow is burn. Burn is versatile right now. We can, you know, it provides a little bit of reach in the late game for us, so we can just finish the game off. We can, you know, bump off small creatures with this, including Spell Queller and small Sylvan Advocates. That would be good, Incendiary Flow. We can redirect damage from players to planeswalkers and cripple or just finish the Nissas and the Lilianas that are playing. So burn is really good, and I could suggest Incendiary Flow right now. But if you have these copies already, or if you have the dollars, go ahead and play Atarka's Command. It's just absolutely ridiculous in this deck. Not only will it usually deal 3 to the dome, but it will also, in conjunction with that, 9 times out of 10, this is how you play the card. 3 to the dome, or a Planeswalker, by the way, and then just buff your entire team, which can just be devastating, especially turn 4. The old 1-2 is, you know, play Atarka's Command and then play Reckless Bushwhacker and swing for a billion. You know, like, we can really finish the game off pretty easily. And we have 2 different buff our whole team effects, and just these 2 in conjunction can be really, really good with one another. So I could babble all day about Atarka's Command. It's the other thing besides Reckless Bushwhacker that makes this deck possible. But we're also playing some madness stuff. We're going to play 4 copies of Distemper of the Blood, and then 4 copies of Fiery Temper here. I've already talked about Burn, and that all applies to Fiery Temper too. Just Burn's really versatile right now. They can do a lot of important things for us in the format. And we gotta play, I think Fiery Temper is probably the most no-brainer inclusion, other than Atarka's Command, like in the entire deck, so do it. And then Distemper of the Blood can function sort of as removal sometimes, you know, depending on blocks and all that. Or it can just punch damage through. Also really good with like Noose Constrictor, good with Fury Blade Vampire, getting them really big for 1 turn. And hard to block too, especially depending on how many cards you discarded with Noose Constrictor, because this can be a really good buff. So Distemper, I think, is a guaranteed must play in a lot of ways. I'd rather play it than say Titan Strength, because I really like the Madness synergies. 18 lands in this deck right here, and yeah, we'll play Game Trail and Cinderglade, but if you don't have the money to do that, you could just play Mountains and Forests, you know, add a few forests, to add more forests than mountains in this case, because you're taking out all the dual lands, we're losing a lot of green sources. We're losing a lot of red sources too, and red sources is what we need the most of in the deck, very obviously, but you don't want to just have like 4 green sources either. So it'd be a lot harder to balance the mana base without these dual lands, but you can do it. Although, if you're going to make 1 upgrade to this deck, I would do this first. And here's the sideboard for you. It doesn't add even $5 to the total cost of the deck. You can get this sideboard for a little over $4. Riddening Volley is maybe the most important sideboard card in the entire format, and a good reason to play red in and of itself. Right now, card is just really, really good against Spirits and Avacyn and all kinds of stuff. Spell Queller, very notably. So do that. Lightning Berserker, very good against all the control decks that play Sorcery Speed Removal, Languish, Ruinous Path, stuff like that. So Lightning Berserker, very good. Lightning Axe, pretty good against, you know, Sylvan Advocates that have gotten big and other big creatures in the format right now. And it's another Madness outlet. Ulvenwald Mysteries was a 4 of when I first made this sideboard, but just a little too slow and doesn't help us as much as I want it to, but is still a boon against things like Languish, so playable, definitely. Incendiary Flow is in there, but if you do play Incendiary Flow in the main deck, because you're not playing a Tarkus command, you can always play like dual shot or aerial volley, I think would be pretty good choices in that slot right there, depending on your local meta. And then Lupine Prototype, I'm going to put in really against decks that we're going to go slightly longer against. I really want to go very, very fast. And sure, Noose Constrictor into turn 3 Lupine Prototype sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty nice, actually. But I just haven't really liked it that much in the main deck. Because the thing with Noose Constrictor is, you want to make this a 5/5 Lupine Prototype. But at the same time, you don't want to lose every single card in your hand all at one time just to get your 5/5 creature. That's terrible. I mean, when you think about it from a card advantage perspective, that's an awful idea. So it just doesn't work like it wanted to, although against some decks, especially slower decks, that kind of gung-ho, just get them as quickly as possible attitude can really work. And sometimes this can be a very, very good top deck, because later on in the game, we're going to be in top deck mode anyway. Here's your power rankings on the base version of the deck. That's the $40 version, the base is. And it's a final score of about 60 points. Actually, exactly 60 points. There's no approximately here. And 60 is actually pretty respectable for only about $40. And yeah, the score is going to go down a good little bit if you implement all the budget options. But you still got a fair amount of explosiveness in the deck, and you're still doing all the things you want to do with the budget version. So the deck is still very easy to win with, kind of out of nowhere, especially against all the control decks that just want to get to Languish on turn 4. We can deal a lot of damage by them with a lot of different turn sequences that we're capable of, both in the budget version and the other budget version. They're both pretty budget, to be honest with you. It's pretty much all I've got for this time, other than what we're doing next time. I always got to talk about that. Next time I want to do Harmless Pact, because we don't have too much longer to play this deck in the format, just about 8 weeks really. So I really want to do Harmless Pact before our time is up. I'm going to be doing that very, very soon here. Also, of course, the top 8 from Pro Tour Eldritch Moon, already mentioned that. You'll see that very soon next week. So stay tuned for all the new content, and subscribe if you're new and you want to see all that stuff. Like the video. That's super important to me that you do that, because it helps more than anything else you could possibly do. And I like it when you like the videos. So do it. And I'll see you guys next time. I'm Deb from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.